As our friend Tyson said, this is a very Martinsville type of Richmond race. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Taylor Kitchen and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, where we do motorsports media your way, talking about NASCAR literally all the time. And it's about like 1 a.m.
Yeah, maybe 1:30 at this point.
Yeah. So we are at Richmond, coming to you with our just fresh thoughts on the race, of course, joined by Toby Christie of TobyChristieCom.
The Toby Christie,
Toby Christie.
I finally make my way onto this thing.
At one point it was going to happen.
I knew at some point it would happen, and it is this week, so there it is.
And today is the day. But let's talk about Sunday's race. I mean, the first thing that threw everything off was the wet weather tires. Did not rain a single drop anytime before, of course, Sunday. So let's chat about that and how that threw off strategies for these teams for the first 30 laps before that competition caution.
Yeah, so it was really bizarre because we've never seen that in the Cup Series in a points-paying race. Obviously, last year at the All-Star race, we saw the wet weather tires be used for a little bit of that race, but it was something. It was an unknown. We really didn't know what we were going to see. And over those first 30 laps, we saw some guys really make some moves towards the front, like Josh Berry and several others, and we saw some other guys fall towards the back. And that kind of set the tone for the rest of the race for a lot of those guys, and it was kind of hard for some of them to rally back.
Yeah, with those tires, we saw these teams or these drivers being able to use multiple grooves, which I don't feel like is kind of how we've seen Richmond in the past, and it allows drivers like Josh Berry move 15-plus positions by the time we had that caution on lap 30. And then we had an incident. I want to know your thoughts on this. This caution for Kyle Busch kind of tagged the wall there. NASCAR, I felt, was a little too quick to pull that caution maybe, and it kind of set everyone's strategy right in line with one another. So the strategy races that we love to see at Richmond, typically, that make things a little bit more interesting, kind of died off.
Yeah. We went from, like you said, multiple grooves with the wet weather tires down to one groove again, where it was kind of a boring race for the most part. But we did have the strategy to keep us in with it, and yes, you can say he hit the wall. He barely scraped it. He grazed it. I mean, I cannot believe we saw a caution for that, but it's what it is. We've seen these kind of things happen in the past. We've also seen bigger things not be called for cautions that sometimes you think it would be. So when it's a judgment call, it's what happens, but it did throw things pretty crazy there for a while because we were like, okay, this thing plays out here. We know these guys are going to be up in the front. You have the Kyle Larsons. You're going to have some of those other guys were back there, and that really threw a wrench into the plan for guys like Alex Bowman as well, and it really made them play catch-up the rest of the day.
Something that was definitely a cause for caution was an incident between Suarez and Josh Berry. Speaking of him yet again this race, Josh Berry kind of tapped the back bumper of Daniel Suarez, spinning him around after the race. They exchanged a few heated words, but everything just seemed to just kind of move on from that point. But Josh Berry able to rally from that point. Unfortunately, had issues on pit road from the driver side of things and from the crew side of things that gave him a 11th place finish. Daniel Suarez wasn't able to recover as much, but what was your take on that whole situation and just their day overall coming back from that?
Yeah, I think Stubbs from Happy Gilmore would be excited about what Josh Berry did, because a little tappy tap there. So that's all it took. Spun him around. Obviously, Berry saw that Suarez went across the front end of his car. Felt he cut him off. Suarez, I'm sure, felt that Berry would cut him a little more slack with it only being like lap 60.
You would have thought.
Neither one of those two things happened, and they both had a situation. Suarez spun. He got the worst end of it, and that was pretty much the end of Suarez being any kind of a competitor throughout the rest of the race. He was running top 10 when that happened, and after that, he was just an afterthought.
Which is very unfortunate. I think Suarez is one of those drivers, and we talk about this every single week, but you want him to build that positive momentum, because after Atlanta, you're like, okay, we need to see that 99 team progressively moving forward. We want to make sure that win wasn't necessarily, I don't want to say a fluke, because he was there when it mattered, but we want to see them perform where they need to be. Trackhouse has been kind of off the past year and a half, so needing to see good performance from them. I do want to say your top 10, of course. Denny Hamlin won this one. We got to talk about how this ended, though. But Denny Hamlin, we've got Joey Logano, we have Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Tyler Reddick make up your top 10.
Hey, my pick was in the top 10. That's
good. Your
good.
pick was in the top 10 with Chris Buescher.
I'll take it. There we go.
Okay.
That's good.
I will say, though, the other time I picked Denny Hamlin, he won a race. This time he won the race, and Denny Hamlin was my pick, so I had faith in the hometown hero. So very excited about that. But the end of that race obviously went into overtime due to an incident with Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson. Let's talk about that for a second.
That wasn't intentional. I hope
It's
you know
all good.
that.
Yeah,
I
no.
got loose
Hey,
and corrected into you.
It all worked out for
I
me.
know, it netted you, and karma's a fucking bitch. It caught up to me.
It's
so.
all good.
Sure, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all
Sorry.
good. It's all good.
Whatever's coming my way, I know I expect it.
Words, but it was all smiles, all like, hey man, I'm sorry about what happened, but that caused this really chaotic but exciting overtime finish.
That changed the entire outcome of the race. You could argue that the Kyle Busch situation earlier in the race did that, and then this redid it. So we had two different shufflings of the deck, and this was one that Martin Truex Jr. really wishes didn't happen.
Yeah.
It happened with 2 laps to go. It looked there for a little while that Martin Truex Jr. was not going to win this race because everybody was catching him from behind, but then all of a sudden it stabilized, and it really looked like he had the thing in the bag, and this ruined it for him.
And what was really great about, Chris Gabehart and Denny Hamlin, like their whole strategy is they kind of had more of a long pit window where they were using fresher tires to gain an advantage.
Yep.
And they were cutting into Truex's lead. But if there wasn't going to be that caution, Truex would have won this whole thing. And obviously, they kind of got into it on those last few laps, kind of bumped Truex out of the way a little bit, and smooth sailing for Denny Hamlin. I know Coach Gibbs talked about this post-race, kind of was just like, it was very unfortunate for Martin Truex Jr., but obviously,
Still happy for Denny, though. I mean, obviously the car's got to be happy for his guy who won the race. But yeah, that's got to be heartbreaking because Martin Truex Jr. dominated this race.
He
Led
really
228 laps, and it's just one of those things where he was getting so frustrated with the lap traffic towards the end there because he really felt the pressure coming from behind him. He was able to kind of sustain that, and it looked like he had overcome it, and he was going to win the race. And then the things we see happen so often happened yet again, just something weird, unpredictable. And we were back under caution for another overtime finish, which we hadn't had any this year.
Right.
So first overtime finish of the season, which came at a very inopportune time for Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah, so very unfortunate for Martin Truex Jr. A good day, though, for Denny Hamlin. I did want to ask, of course, we rate these races above or below the yellow line. Let's talk about the product overall. It started off as maybe exciting, as we mentioned, and then it got to maybe not as exciting. But do you think that this was one of the better Richmond races that we've had in the past so many years?
Oh, man, that is because we've not had very good ones.
Yeah.
This track was once known as the Action Track, and it's a beautiful facility. I love the facility. The people
great.
that work here are excellent. The racing has not been the best, and I think, again, today, unfortunately, the racing wasn't super great. We saw excellent stuff with the wet weather tire, and it was the point where people were actually asking for more rain once we got into the long, sustained run with the other tires, so that's not what you like to see.
And we kind of saw the same thing with North Wilkesboro as well, like when we ran that. So
yeah, I mean, the product there was also not very good once it dried out, and when it was wet, I mean, it still wasn't super great, but it was at least like, okay, this is interesting and different, so it's one of those things where I don't know what the magical fix is. They've been trying like crazy to figure out this short track package, and we just don't have it. It just seems like we're going to have to get away from shifting on short tracks. It really feels that way. I know that NASCAR probably doesn't want to hear that. I know they don't want to come to that realization and just do it, but something's going to have to change, and it's obvious the stuff underneath the car is not getting it done.
Right. So for me, rating this race above or below the yellow line, I feel bad giving it like a 50. That's on the line, but I feel like a little lower.
Had it not been for the finish.
Yeah.
So the finish saved it. I'd
really
say
did.
Finish puts it over 50.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think 50 is like the bare minimum average kind of thing.
Right.
And I feel like this was what you expect going into a Richmond race. But the finish kind of brings it to 50. I'd say 50.
Yeah, I think 50 just on that line.
Is that the line? So
that's
the line. Then we're 49. I'll put it under,
okay.
I'm going under the line, so 49.
So 49.50 will be somewhere in that range for this race. Of course, as the week goes on, we'll have more stories from this race weekend out for you on TobyChristieCom. So make sure to check us out there. Also on our social media handles at TobyChristieCom and at above the yellow line or at _TaylorKitchen_. We will have it all in the description of the videos for you all. And of course, coming up this week, we'll have another Above the Yellow Line live. Toby can hopefully join us for that.
I hope so. It'll be fun. We'll see if I can squeeze it in the schedule. We've got a lot of crazy stuff with a quick turnaround to Martinsville, but it'll be fun. By the way, Taylor Kitchen was writing some stuff this week. Excellent stuff, by the way. So go check it out, TobyChristieCom. Lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, and we'll be back at it again at Martinsville, covering everything live from the track. So,
ooh, we might get another post-race video. I might be in another one.
You will be.
Okay.
I'm making it official. You are.
Sounds good. Okay.
Awesome. Well, So you'll catch us both at Martinsville. But everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode of Above the Yellow Line, live from the track.
If you hear that buzzing noise, that's the track.
That's the track. The track is tired just as we are. But thank you all so much for your support. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.